Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about makeup packaging, specifically makeup packaging that I hate, that I don't like for whatever reason, or I just don't understand. I've either had these products in my collection or I currently own them, and they're just a little bit less enjoyable to use because of the packaging, or I've seen them on social media and I just don't really understand how those products would work. I asked you guys recently, like, how important is packaging to you? And a lot of you guys said that you won't necessarily write off a product because of poor packaging, but it does make a difference when you're using a product and it has really beautiful or really functional packaging. And I agree with you. For me, it doesn't necessarily make or break the product, maybe in some circumstances, but for the most part, I just think good packaging or packaging that works well just makes the product a little bit more fun and easier to reach for. So today's video is just meant to be fun and lighthearted. I know that there are other people on YouTube who have filmed videos like this. Specifically, I can think of Kelly Gooch and Smoky Glow. So I'll link their videos and any other related videos in the description box below. But there are two products in particular that kind of inspired this video for me, and they're both from Milk Makeup. The first one is the Milk Makeup Sunshine Skin Tint. So this product is $49. There are a few things about this that I don't get. First of all, this product doesn't actually come with a lot of product in it. And I was reading about the actual size. I'll put the information on the screen, but it's $42. And for $42, I usually expect at least 1 fluid ounce. And I'm pretty sure, let me just look it up. I'm pretty sure this one comes with less than 1 fluid ounce. Now this is a skin tint, so I don't think you're meant to really load on the product and use a ton of it. But when it comes to lighter coverage products like tinted moisturizers or even like BB creams, I feel like a lot of brands typically include more product because it is so light coverage. I feel like inevitably you end up using a little bit more than you would with something that has a ton of coverage. Okay, so this comes with 0.54 ounces for $42. I just feel like that is so expensive for the amount of product you get. And I do take price per ounce into consideration when it comes to base products because typically I will go through them at some point. The other issue for me is that the packaging is just weird. It comes with a pump and you pump the product up and it comes through the top, which would make sense if maybe it was a brush on or it kind of had like a cushion at the end, but it has a glass roller ball. I actually watched someone using this in a video and it seemed like they were having just a difficult time because it comes out around the glass roller ball, but the glass roller ball doesn't really like spread the product evenly, and because it is such a lightweight, light coverage product, it was just kind of like moving it around. So I feel like it would probably be better to just kind of like pump it out and apply it with your fingers. I don't know, the whole application method just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not something I would really choose for any of my complexion products. For me, that one is just very confusing. The other Milk Makeup product that I thought about is their Color Chalk Multi-Use Powder Pigment. So these are $18. They are a newer product. I actually saw this product on TikTok for the first time, and I couldn't really understand what it was or why they packaged it in the way that they did. So on the website, on Sephora's website, they actually say that they are packaging it to create less waste, which is amazing. I am all for that. I love the fact that brands are a little bit more aware of the fact that sustainable packaging is something that is important. Now the issue is the product itself comes in like this peel-off wrapper, so it does seem like there is less waste and less plastic associated with it initially, but on the side they actually have like a flip top plastic tube that you can put the product inside of. So I don't really understand their marketing behind it because there is a separate plastic component that comes with the product. But the product itself is like this kind of chalk-like texture, and on TikTok they were kind of like scraping it and like breaking off pieces to use that you can mix in with like a mixing liquid, but you can also use it as a chalk. I don't know, for me it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like pigments and solid products are so different and I would use them for different purposes, but you know, that's just coming from my point of view. I'm not someone who gets super creative with my makeup products. So if you are, you might enjoy this product, but I just feel like it was very confusing overall in the way that they marketed it. And when I was reading through the reviews, a lot of people were saying the thought behind it made sense, but the actual execution wasn't great. The next product is the Essence All About Matte Fixing Compact Powder. So I thought about this one because every single time I mention this product in a video, I get so many comments from you guys saying that you like the product, but you hate the packaging because the packaging always seems to break on you. So cheap packaging isn't something that really bothers me. If I'm paying like $3 or $4 for a product, I don't mind if it feels a little bit more cheap or it looks cheap, but I hate when it actually breaks. And I have to agree with you guys. The lid on this product always cracks or breaks off on me, even when I'm not like rough with my makeup. If it's just like sitting in my drawer, somehow before I use it up completely, the lid breaks or cracks. It's not a great product to travel with or to kind of include in an on-the-go makeup bag because it just doesn't hold up very well. So I do wish Essence would kind of improve that packaging. It's weird because they have other powder products that feel cheap but that hold up a little bit better. And I don't know if it's because it's a powder, so I use it more often than like a blush or a bronzer, but I totally agree with you guys. The packaging on that product is just not good. Another product that I love with packaging that I hate would have to be the Pacifica setting powder. I've actually tried a few powders that are packaged like this. So it comes in like a regular loose powder container, but when you open it up, instead of kind of having like holes where you could dump out the product, it has a net and you dip your brush into the net and the powder kind of comes off onto the brush. Whenever a powder has a net, I always end up with way too much powder on my brush. I feel like so much powder kind of like flies up out of the product when you dip your brush in. And I've tried kind of like dumping powder onto the lid, but it just makes a mess and I can't get the right amount out. So I think I should probably just try to like pop off the net and just use it like a regular loose powder without any kind of sifter. But I don't love the net packaging. I don't know. Do you guys like that? I feel like that is something that just never works for me whenever I've tried it in the past. And now I am using the Pacifica powder pretty regularly. I just hate using it for that reason. I just prefer loose powders that like snap close. So when you twist off the lid, they snap close. You can open them and then dump powder out because I feel like that is just like the easiest way to do it, but the net just bothers me. I don't know how to use it without getting too much powder, and then my face just ends up looking so powdery every time. As for blush and bronzer packaging, I think my biggest pet peeve is just super bulky packaging. I feel like a lot of brands tend to do really large blush and bronzer packaging, and I feel like they're getting better, and the packaging is just a little bit more sleek and slim overall, but there are a few brands that come to mind when I think of like bulky powder products. The first brand is Benefit Cosmetics. I don't think that I've had a Benefit blush in my collection for a long time, ever since I went cruelty-free, but I did have them back in the day because that was one of my favorite blush formulas. I loved Coralista. That was like my #1 blush at the time, and what I didn't like about their products was the fact that they came in those bulky cardboard boxes. Now, it wasn't the worst thing ever. I mean, I could just put them in my makeup collection and they would be fine, but the actual blush just kind of sat lower in the packaging because typically they would come with a brush and you could pull out the brush and use it, but I never really used the brush that they came with. The only time that I would use it is when I used my Benefit Hoola bronzer. And do you guys remember when the NARS Ita brush was so big and so popular? It was sold out everywhere and it was kind of expensive. So the Benefit brushes were kind of shaped in a similar way and you could use them to contour. That was the only time I used it. Because the blush did sit lower in the box, your brush would have to go in the box. And if you were using more of like a fan brush for contouring or you're using like a big fluffy brush for blush, it just didn't always fit in there very well. I couldn't coat my brush very well with the product and it was just always a hassle. So I personally didn't like the fact that they came in that cardboard packaging. I remember they would do like those large blush palettes for the holiday season, and even though those were super bulky, I almost preferred those because I could open up my palette and just be able to use the blush a little bit more easily. So that is probably like the main brand that I think of when I think of bulky packaging. And also I just prefer like round compacts that are a little bit smaller. I feel like they're easier to store. The other brand that does do bulky packaging for their cheek products is definitely Physicians Formula. The butter bronzer was one of my favorite products, but the packaging was just so bulky. I don't know if they've slimmed it down because again, it's been a little while since I've purchased that product, but I think it was a little bit bigger because first of all, the top was kind of rounded, but underneath they also also had a brush and a mirror, which I do feel like is a nice touch, but instead I feel like they could just, again, eliminate the brush, and if they wanted to add a mirror, they could add it to like the top lid instead of having a whole separate section. And the brush that comes with the butter bronzer, again, is so weird. At least the brush that comes in the Benefit products is an actual brush. The brush in the Physicians Formula butter bronzer, at least it was when I used it last, was like a weird piece of foam that I just didn't understand. I would never use that to apply a powder product. So for me, I loved their products, but it wasn't even just the butter bronzer, the butter blushes, some of their highlighters, all of the packaging was just so large and it took up so much room in my makeup collection. So big bulky packaging is just not my favorite thing. I think a lot of brands have moved away from that. A lot of brands used to do really large eyeshadow palettes and just products in general, and I feel like these days they're kind of going for something a little bit more small overall, which I love. Another brand that does do large packaging for their cheek products is ColourPop. They do it a little bit differently. So instead of being like large and bulky this way when you hold the compact, it's very long this way and just like very big overall. And they have a range of products. So some of their products come in smaller, more discreet cardboard packaging, but I'm thinking specifically of their giant Super Shock highlighters that come in those large plastic compacts. Now, the difference between the ColourPop products and other products is that those aren't bulky in the typical sense. Like they're not like short little fat products. They're like long, thin products. So it doesn't make a lot of sense because you get a ton of product in them, and they really only do it with their Super Shock highlighters, which are kind of more of a cream formula, so they are more likely to dry up quickly. But the actual compact is so big, I can't really even hold it in my hand very comfortably because it's wider than like the width of my hand. On top of that, they're very hard to open. I have such a hard time with those products for some reason, and it takes me multiple tries every single time I want to use it. And then, like I said, you do get a ton of product. It has a very large mirror, and I just feel like it's a lot of excessive packaging for something that could be a lot smaller. The weird part about ColourPop is they have products that are a lot smaller. They have their regular Super Shock highlighters that are just small, round products. They also have like smaller cardboard products, so they're always switching it up, and I just don't typically love like the really large compacts. They're hard to hold, they're hard to open, and I just feel like it's very excessive. There are a few eyeshadow palettes I wanted to talk about. Like I said earlier, I'm so glad that brands have kind of moved away from the super large, bulky, boxy packaging. They just don't seem to do that as often these days, which I love because those were just a little bit more difficult to use. They were just so big and excessive, and now they do things that are a little bit more slim and simplified. But as far as like the outer packaging goes, there's one brand that I just don't love. And again, I think they've kind of moved away from this, but Anastasia Beverly Hills used to do like that velvety packaging. I'm thinking specifically of like Modern Renaissance and Soft Glam and what was that one? Subculture. I feel like all of those came with like that very velvety packaging, and it just gets dirty so easily. Norvina, and I'm someone who can keep my palettes pretty clean. I love my eyeshadow palettes. I use them regularly, but I just like when they look a little bit nicer overall. But that packaging is so hard to keep clean. Inevitably, you're going to get eyeshadow on it, and it's going to look messy, and it's hard to remove. So I just don't love the texture of that. I feel like they've moved away from that because Sultry, Jackie Aina, the Carly Bible palette, some of their more recent palettes haven't had that. So I don't know that they're really doing that anymore. I mean, they haven't released an eyeshadow palette in a while. So if they do in the future, I hope they kind of stick with like the different packaging that they've done other than that velvety texture. It just gets so messy. When it comes to eyeshadow palette layouts, typically I just prefer just not a lot of empty space. Sometimes brands will kind of try to do something unique with the pans or the pan sizes, and it always throws me off. I just like regular, typical like square or circle pans, even rectangle pans, but I just don't like for there to be a lot of wasted space. Sugar Pill is a brand that I hear really good things about. I hear that their eyeshadows are amazing, and over the past year or two, they've been doing those kind of like pill-shaped palettes. I actually think it's kind of a cool concept. It's just something a little bit different, and I think they have really cool color stories. But because of that packaging, I just haven't tried their eyeshadow palettes. They do like smaller pans and then larger pans, and whenever brands do that, I don't know why. It just doesn't appeal to me for a few different reasons. I think it's because I don't know what eyeshadow in that palette is going to be one of my most used colors. So they might do like a green as a small pan and then a blue as a big pan, but I might like the green a little bit better. So for me, I just like all of the pans to be the same size. And I don't always mind if like there are a few colors that are a little bit bigger, but I think all of the empty space in the Sugar Pill palettes just kind of throws me off too. It almost feels like you're paying for an incomplete palette. Like there could be more product in there, but there's not. And I'm not even someone who goes through eyeshadow palettes. I will hit pan occasionally, but it's funny that I feel that way because chances are if I was to purchase like one of the Sugar Pill palettes, I probably wouldn't even hit pan on one of those shades because they tend to be a little bit more colorful, but it just throws me off and all of a sudden the palette just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I think when it comes to packaging, I have the least issue with like foundations and primers and concealers. Typically, they all work well for me, and I couldn't really think of a lot of products in those categories, but I did think of one foundation and one primer. So as for foundation, I wanted to mention the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. Again, I haven't had this in my collection for a little while, so maybe they've switched it up, but it used to come with a paddle. Like you would open it up, and there was like this plastic paddle on the end that you could use to kind of put on the back of your hand or your face. I really didn't like that. I would usually just end up removing that and kind of dumping a little bit out on like the back of my hand and then using my brush to apply it to my face. But I felt like that plastic paddle was so uncomfortable if you were to use it directly on your face, and it never picked up enough product for me. I know some people don't like doe foots when it comes to foundation because they feel like they can be a little bit unsanitary. They don't really bother me personally because typically I am applying my foundation to my hand before I go in with a brush on my face. So I don't always apply it directly to my face, but that plastic paddle was just so uncomfortable. I always felt like I was scratching my face if I did use it. And if I did apply it to the back of my hand, I felt like I had to dip it back into the foundation multiple times to get enough product. That was just a small complaint because obviously that could be avoided if you were to just kind of dump it out and not use the plastic paddle applicator, but that's a product that I didn't really understand. The last product I wanted to mention is the e.l.f. Oil Control Primer Mist. I love this product. I think it works so well, but the actual spray nozzle is not very good. And I feel like this is the case with some products out there. When you spray it, it comes out and it's so direct. So it sprays you right in the face and it just doesn't feel good and it doesn't, diffuse the product evenly over your face. So because of that, I feel like if someone was to purchase the product, that might be a turnoff. After I figured that out, I would just spray it directly into my hands and then press it into my skin. And I feel like doing that, I was able to get more of a targeted application anyway. But when it comes to like certain setting sprays or priming sprays, if they have like a bad mister, I feel like it can just make the entire experience a lot less enjoyable. So again, there's an easy fix for that. Obviously, you can kind of dump them into a bottle that you like, but it's just when you buy a product, you just want it to work well, and it's hard to enjoy it if the product is like directly spraying you in the eye or it's all over the place, it soaks your shirt, it's just a mess. So those are all of the products I wanted to share with you guys in today's video. What bothers you about makeup packaging? Are there certain products you won't use because of the packaging? Is there just like makeup packaging that you don't understand? Like the Milk makeup products for me? I would love to know, so let me know in the comment section below. But otherwise, I'll see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye.